Welcome back to Book Review. We're getting right into it this episode. We're focusing on a few books in particular instead of a whole slew. I'm gonna keep this one a little shorter. I have a lot to say about one book in particular. And we're gonna start with that one. First, as always, if you've seen the last video, reading is important. Reading is wonderful. It's not for everybody, but I think everybody should give it a try. It's a lost art form. This is A Little Life by Yanagihara. I saw a lot of people on TikTok post them finishing this book and fucking sobbing, like literally drenched in tears, freaking out.
Consider this a warning, a book review, if you will. If you're thinking about reading A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara, this book right here, do not do that.
A lot of people do a thing where they'll like tab a part of the book that they like and underline it, and people had it just filled to the brim. And I understand why, because there's a lot of really quotable things, a lot of really beautiful things in this book. And it is now my favorite book of all time, easily. That spot was very difficult to beat with I Am Legend and the Maze Runner trilogy, but I hadn't read a book like this, one that's very adult in the real world. I've always read very fantasy kind of stuff, so it was nice to read something that could really happen. I think the thing that makes this book so popular could be in part because of the way it makes you feel. Like, this book is devastating. This book hurts. It is not an easy book to get through. It's very difficult for me. It's like 800 pages, but at no point while reading this did I worry about how many pages there were because I was so invested. The whole book, I think it's called A Little Life because it really focuses on this entire life from beginning to end of the main character, Jude. And throughout the whole book, it's like you get like this, I don't know, like this glass ball look into this entire lifetime. And it is insane. Jude has gone through horrible things. This book is not for the faint of heart. It touches on all sort of things like basic assault, heartbreak, self-harm. It is difficult, and I loved it. I loved it because of that. If you've seen a lot of the videos on this channel, you know that I like really dark subject matter, and I think it creates really good art. And that's what I think this book was. I cried multiple times. I think I cried like 3 or 4 times while reading this book. Probably more than that. Many times I teared up, but I also laughed a lot and I smiled a lot, and I was content and happy and invested, and it was just a fucking roller coaster. If you think you have the energy to read, or if you want to read a long book, I highly recommend this immensely. It was insane. This book follows 4 friends that met in college. It's Malcolm, Willem, JB, and Jude, and they all moved to New York after college, and they all start chasing their different dreams. And throughout it, the relationship builds, it falls, you get insights into people's lives, you get insights into the turmoil of the group. But I think the most captivating part, obviously, is Jude's story and the insane depth that it goes in, and how ridiculous his life was. And a lot of people talk about the book, how it's over dramatic and how it goes too deep, how it's almost like... I think that that exaggeration almost helps drill it into your head that a lot of people live like that. Like, there's kids like Jude in the book. He's abandoned by his family. He's taken in by the church. The church does awful things to him. He's tossed around. He's and he never gets better, which I've watched a lot of interviews with the author, and she states that that's a book she wanted to write. It was a character that never got better.
So I thought, well, what would it be like to write a character who who doesn't ever really improve, and can you still find narrative tension, and can you still find a sense of, thank you for moving that, momentum in that kind of story? So that was the first idea.
Because it's true, there's a lot of people that don't. And you should try every bit that you can to get better, but in a lot of cases it's just not possible, especially for people like Jude. But as this book goes to show, you can find happiness even if you have, trauma that you can't overcome or severe depression. I'll pick out a few parts of the book that I found the most devastating. I think the parts that mostly made me cry. One of the characters, Willem, him and Jude fall in love with each other and they start dating for a while, and they have a lot of really bad ups and downs. And in the book, Jude self-harms. He cuts himself. It's a really big part of the book, but really severely and really just awful. And Willem tried so hard to get him to stop. And one day, Jude went into the bathroom in the middle of the night and started cutting himself. And Willem woke up in the middle of the night and stared through the bathroom door at Jude, and Jude didn't notice until he did. And Willem and him started fighting and freaked out. So Willem grabbed a razor and started slicing his chest and freaking out, falling down in pain, bleeding everywhere, asking how Jude could do this and how he's able to. And it is crazy. It is gnarly. One of the massive turning points of this book, and the reason that it gets so devastating, especially near the end, is that Willem dies in a car crash with Malcolm. And Jude is devastated, obviously, because Willem is the center of his world, his one true form of happiness. Jude goes into an insane depression. He doesn't eat. He sleeps literally all day, just imagining Willem not being dead, dreaming of a world where he's not. He doesn't show up to any of his friends' houses. He doesn't really talk to anyone at all, not even his father that adopted him. It gets to the point where everyone has to have an intervention with him because he's doing so terrible for himself. And at one point, I don't know where along in the timeline it goes, but Jude is up in his room. He hasn't talked to anyone forever. The person that lives downstairs from him in his apartment building walks upstairs and he's like, "Hey, please come down, eat with me. I just want to talk to you and just, spend a little time together." And Jude reluctantly goes, and they get down there. And after a while of talking, Jude doesn't really give him much. The character that brought him down, Richard, walks into the kitchen and comes out, I think with a cupcake with a candle in it, and scents it in front of Jude and says, "Happy birthday, Jude." And Jude just starts breaking down, crying. And that one really fucked me up.
It's heavy.
If you read it and get attached to the characters, all the little nuances and things are so goddamn devastating. And it's insane. This book fucked me up tremendously. I've had trouble reading after it because I had a horrible book hangover. I still kind of do. I can't find a book that just matches this. And I really fucking want to. I highly recommend reading it though. Fucking 10 out of 10. Literally mental. It will probably make you cry unless you're heartless, and I don't know. Yes.
I actually have two really small questions. The
Okay.
first one is, did you cry at any point when you were writing this book? And if so, where?
Well, I mean, I did not cry, and in fact, my first reader didn't cry at all, and my agent didn't cry, and my editor didn't cry. So when people started crying, I thought, wow, what a bunch of pussies, But no, none of them cried. I mean, they're either everyone is weak or they're dead inside, So I think it's the latter, that they're dead inside. But thank you.
Since the last book review, I've literally only finished and read 2 books. I finished The Institute by Stephen King. That book was really great. I highly recommend that one. I read The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy first after The Institute, and I didn't really like it. The movie was really funny, and this had a lot of strong points, but the flow was super weird. The humor was just not really my type of humor. I found some parts amusing, but most of the time it was just kind of like when you breathe out of your nose a little bit, if that. Interesting story though, and it had pretty cool philosophy and mind-bending bits, and I don't know, Marvin the Depressed Robot was kind of a funny character. Then I read this book, The Christmas Pig by J.K. Rowling. I knew it was going to be a kid's book. Obviously you can tell by the cover, but it was around Christmas time and I was super excited to read a Christmas book and do something simple and exciting. But it was actually crazy good, and I think even an adult could enjoy it because the writing is just so well done. It's about this kid who has this pig that he's had for years. It's you know, every kid has their stuffed animal. A lot of people maybe still do. And it was his, and he lost it, and he got a replacement. It follows a bunch of family issues, but him and this new pig go to the land of the lost, where all the lost items and toys and all kinds of stuff go. Massive, actually interesting world build. It's a super cool place, the land of the lost, and it follows his adventure trying to get him back. And a ton of shit happens. The illustrations are really cool. You can kind of see it. There's not a lot of them, but the art style was really cool. The story was investing, and it was an easy read. I thought it was really cool, so I rate this one highly. I don't have the book in here right now, but I'm reading Dune, and it is really slow, and I'm having trouble getting through it, but I'm gonna power through, and I'm gonna read the book. They both die at the end, because I think it might have a similar effect to A Little Life, because every book I've read, it's been in pursuit of being as good as A Little Life was, unfortunately. And that's about it. I hope this was interesting. I don't know if it was. I had a really hard time explaining stuff, but A Little Life destroyed me. Moral of the story, and I cannot find a book that is as good, but hopefully I will. I love you all. Goodbye.